We love our pets. They're our best friends as we navigate life's ups and downs with a wag or a purr just when we need it. The Royal Veterinary College is there for our pets, home to Europe's largest small animal referrals hospital, with over 200 specialists providing expert care 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The bond between a pet and their person is worth fighting for, and that's the belief that inspired the RVC Memory Tree, a beautiful handmade sculpture standing in the heart of the RVC Small Animal Referrals Hospital, adorned with gold, silver and copper leaves, each one engraved with the name of a beloved pet, and each one funding the extraordinary work happening there every day. For just £10 a month, you can dedicate a leaf in the name of your pet, celebrating your pet's life, whilst also helping to fund life-saving treatment and care for animals in need. Visit rvcact.com/memory tree to dedicate a leaf today and let your pet's memory live on.
With the American Express Platinum Card, I can unlock experiences like no other. Since I'm always booking my next trip, I love that I can earn points on travel. Plus, I get a Resi benefit, so you know I'm hitting the restaurants everyone's talking about. And you can find out your welcome offer after you apply, which could be as high as 175,000 points. For experiences like no other, there's nothing like Platinum. Learn more at americanexpress.com/explore-platinum. Terms apply.
Hello and welcome to the Book Club Review. I'm Kate and this is the podcast about book clubs and the books that get people talking. Deciding what to read on holiday is arguably one of the great pleasures of summer. Whether you're the sort of person who carefully curates a stack weeks in advance or throws a novel into your bag at the last minute, there's something irresistible about the idea that the right books could make your holiday all the more memorable. In this episode, I'm joined by my regular co-host and dear friend Laura Potter, and by pod favourite journalist Phil Chaffee. We had the rare opportunity to be together in real life, rather than being divided by the Atlantic Ocean, as is more usual for us. So we're catching up on some of the books we've been reading recently before turning our attention to this year's summer reading recommendations. We've been comparing the lists from the New York Times, the Times, LitHub and the Booker Prize, and putting each book through our own highly unscientific classification system. Is it beach-worthy, one for the suitcase, though it may not make it out, or one we'd rather leave behind at the airport? And finally, we share the books that we are going to be packing for our own holidays this summer. So whether you're still searching for the perfect holiday read, or just curious to see which books made our final cut, keep listening, that's all coming up, here on the Book Club Review. The summer cocktails have been flowing, we've had a long day in the sun, me in a park with the kids, Laura on various forms of London transport, Phil out and about. How are we all doing?
Great, we're very excited to be here.
Absolutely. I don't think Laura and I have seen each other in person for years.
Maybe 5.5.
That seems crazy.
Which does seem crazy.
It's been a long while.
Because we have conversed and chatted in our book club every other month for those 5 years. And we've also had the pleasure of recording. I know, but suddenly I was like, I haven't seen you in 3 dimensions in a very long time.
Well, it's very lovely to have you. I feel the same, actually. I talk to you guys all the time. There's no novelty here.
It's a certain something when you're in person.
No, it's very, very nice. So, summer reading. I mean, it's a bit contrived, isn't it? Like, I don't read particularly differently when it comes to summer. Reading is reading as far as I'm concerned. But I suppose there is, I think, quite a nice sense of an opportunity to read. Maybe, you know, we're probably all of us going to get to a point where we have a bit more time to read than we do normally. And I think it's really nice to embrace that and get a little bit excited about that. So yes, in the run up to summer, I'm curious what sorts of things you two have been lining up for yourselves. Phil, what have you been in the mood for recently?
I have been reading, as always, quite a lot. Laura shamed me on the podcast.
Was I encouraging you?
It was the golden mean. She talked about the golden mean and said she had recommended it to me and I hadn't picked it up yet.
I mean, sounds like nagging, not shaming.
I felt shamed. And then the next day I was like, okay, that's going to the top of the TBR and it is great. It is like Laura's recommendations.
Shaming was well deserved.
So this is Annabel Lyon, and in case you missed the previous reference to it, this is a historical novel set in the Greek, what was it?
It's Macedonia.
Macedonian
Ancient
Empire,
Macedonia.
yeah.
Philip II's bringing war to Persia, forged in the warrior culture of Macedonia. The time has come for his young son Alexander to take up his inheritance of blood and obedience to the sword. It's the training that has made the boy sadistic, fiercely brilliant, but unstable. A dangerous trait in a king fated to rule the vastest empire in the ancient world. Compelled to teach the startling, precocious, sometimes horrifying child, Aristotle soon realizes that what the boy needs most to learn, thrown before his time onto his father's battlefields, is the lesson of the golden mean, the elusive balance between extremes that Aristotle hopes will mitigate the boy's will to conquer in the age of fighting heroes.
Okay, I hate that description.
Yeah.
It's kind of accurate, but it sounds so predictable or flat or on the nose. I'm like, yeah, okay, like I can see how that summary applies to the book, but the book's way more subtle and interesting than that description would make it out to be.
I also downloaded it on Kindle and read the first couple of chapters and was liking it as well. It flies along, doesn't it? It's really immersive.
It's great. And she famously was like endorsed by Hilary Mantel,
Yes.
who is sort of
Who knows the
god
good
of
stuff.
good historical fiction writing. And this does sort of meet all of my tests. These feel like they are in their place, of their place. And we're also getting a great sense of that place. It feels like a different world, and it is just at this hinge point where Alexander is obviously about to go out and conquer a lot of the world, a lot of Eurasia. And it's Aristotle. He knows that he's in the vicinity of this very brilliant kid, and all that goes into that. It's just great.
That's really good. And this is not anachronistic at all. And at the same time, you have this sense of humanity.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes you read historical novels and it's like you're reading about a different race, or it's almost like sci-fi where you're like, you're showing me something completely different and that's interesting. Whereas here, you're like, oh no, these are very recognizable human beings who nonetheless feel like they are in a completely different context.
Yeah.
But it's relatable.
Yeah.
You can see the humanity that flows between them.
And I actually read this a couple weeks after reading this other nonfiction book called Plato and the Tyrant by James Romm, who is this classicist academic. And that book is set just after actually Glorious Exploits. Like, it's all this little link. But that is about this actual relationship between Plato and these tyrants in Syracuse, which is where Glorious Exploits is set. And it's about Plato as he's laying out the philosophy of the Republic, then thinking, I want to see if I can get this. He doesn't say explicitly philosopher kings, but that's basically what it is. And he builds this relationship actually with two father-son tyrants in Syracuse, seeing if he can create a philosopher king. Aristotle was a disciple of Plato, so that very much flowed into this. And it's really interesting reading them back to back because there are these deep philosophical issues about populism and also tyrants and how you deal with them and whether they could be pulled in by philosophy to advance the world. So there's a lot going on in that book, and I recommend the other one too. But it's just absolutely great. And I'm glad I was shamed into reading it by Laura.
Try and be a nicer friend? I don't know. Maybe not. I feel like I did good.
I feel you've got 3 books in one there, Phil. There was The Golden Mean by Annabel Lyon, Plato and the Tyrant by James Romm, and you also mentioned in passing Glorious Exploits by Ferdia Lennon, which we did last summer. I think we did it for book club, didn't we?
I think it was a winter read.
Yeah, we read it, I think, about a year and a half ago.
I feel like it would be a good summer read, though.
Yes, absolutely, because it's a delight.
Yeah, although quite dark.
Yeah.
It's sad and first known genocide or prison camp, I should say.
But for all that, actually, it is a real page turner. The characters are so vivid. It flies off the page. You feel like you're there in the best way. It really transports you. And you care about these people, and he doesn't leave you hanging.
Yeah.
It's a good arc. How about you, Laura? What have you been reading?
Well, it's very timely because I picked up a secondhand copy of Dorothy Dunnett's The Game of Kings. Now, repeat listeners will know that Phil introduced me to Dorothy Dunnett 10 years ago, I feel like. I guess we've known each other for that long now. Game of Kings was the first one that I read. However, in picking it up, I was like, oh, wait a second. I don't think I finished this. I think I went on to the second book for some reason without finishing the first. I have no idea why.
That is very bizarre.
It is. I think maybe I thought I finished it and time had passed, so I went straight on to the second. For those who don't know, Dorothy Dunnett is a Scottish historical novelist. She wrote 2 series. The Lyman Chronicles, which is what I'm talking about here. The first book is The Game of Kings. She then wrote The House of Nicolo. Each of these series has roughly 7 to 9 books, and this is a bigger edition. It's 600 pages. Like, you get the smaller print, smaller page editions, they're about 900 pages.
And it's quite dense, the writing, isn't it? It's detailed. It's not easy.
Like, I'm keen. Kate's not so keen.
I mean, I read the first of the Lyman books, and I could see what people who love her see in it. Like, I could see that. But at the same time, it was very complicated. There was a really big cast of characters, and you have to remember who they are, what the noble rank is, and what the family collections are, and because all that really matters. And also, I just didn't really like this main character much. And unfortunately for me, if I have to go through all of that and I don't even care that much about the main character, I'm out. Now, Phil always says, when I bring this up, we've had multiple conversations on this, that apparently this main character, Lyman, he comes good.
She didn't finish it either.
I don't think so. She says she did, but
yeah, you didn't finish it.
No, I got to the twist at the end of the first one. I just couldn't get past all the awful things that he'd done earlier on in the book. But there are obviously lots of other ones to follow, and I haven't read those, and I assume that the character develops and changes as he goes along. I mean, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt.
They are not everyone's cup of tea, but they are definitely Phil and my cup of tea. And we are planning a special takeover episode, listeners. TBC whether Kate will even be invited. I mean, she'll just chime in and be like, well, I don't know about this. So we'll be like, quiet you.
Well, I've got the first volume of the Niccolo series upstairs. Is it Niccolo Rising?
Yeah.
And I did get that with this in mind.
Yep.
I will read that when we talk about it.
And I do like the House of Niccolo series more, I think.
And she wrote that second after the Lyman Chronicles.
It's elevated. Like, she probably learned a lot writing the Lyman Chronicles. It gets much richer. It's much easier it's not easier to follow necessarily, but you kind of know that you're missing something. Whereas with the Game of Kings, it is just like Angus and Lennox and Graham and Buckley and Will Scott, and you're like, who are all these Scottish people? And
I have been at times in my life a paying member of the Dorothy Dunnett Society.
Have you now?
I've never actually gone to a meeting, but like, they have a newsletter.
Can you please go to a meeting?
Yeah, I really need to. They always it's like
they
an
in
annual
Edinburgh?
meetup at some. I think that and some London pub too. But what I do gather from it is, because there's a lot of diehard Dunnett fans. And what I gather from it is a lot of people start with Lyman are in love with Francis Crawford of Lyman in a way that they don't feel about Niccolo. And I am basically with Laura that Niccolo is ultimately a richer experience. She finished the last of the Niccolo books just before she died. There are reveals at the end of the 8th book.
I'll get there one day.
Go back to the beginning of the first book. Like, it's all very planned out. But it's just a masterpiece.
And I was telling Kate earlier, because we were talking about this, that the joy of The House of Niccolo is that every book is basically set somewhere else. But even the first book, which is set almost entirely in Bruges, it's like medieval banking. And I was like, you like Michael Lewis novels? It's like
I do like
how wealth was created in a really gripping empire building way. So I do think there's something in there for you, Kate.
Well, if I could just drag you back to contemporary literary fiction in translation, how unimpeachable are my credentials here? We at the Patreon Book Club have just finished We Are Green and Trembling, which is by an Argentine author called Gabriela Cabezon Camara. And it's translated by a poet, Robin Myers. And that's important because the language of this novel is very dense and poetic, and you really get immersed in this language. I pulled a random sentence out, but this is the sort of thing that you have to contend with. He knew not only that he was alive, but that life was caressing him with the joy of pups, of flowers flowering, of pure love offered forth, unthinking of the birth of Christ. So this character that's telling the story is based on a real-life individual, Antonio de Arasso, who lived in the 16th century and was born female, raised in a convent, sort of escaped, and then henceforth dressed as a man and presented as male. And then kind of went off on these various swashbuckling adventures and travelled overseas and eventually ended up in the South American Spanish colonies, where the novel We Are Green and Trembling picks up. And at that point, he's escaped from this garrison where he's been imprisoned. He's fled into the jungle. He's got these 2 indigenous Guarani children, girls, that he has rescued from this garrison, which is shown to be a sort of web of corruption and depravity. And he's fled into the jungle, and he's writing this letter home to his aunt, which basically fills in his backstory. And this is all drawn from a real book, his autobiography, which existed, although the authorship of it is actually in contention because it was published quite a long time after he lived, in which he detailed this life history and all of these things. And it was quite a sensation at the time. But so what's really interesting about this book is that the author, Gabriel Cabezon Camara, has taken this story and it's just got all of these different elements that are really interesting and have a real contemporary resonance, like the idea of gender identity and colonialism and nature and the idea of the jungle as a living, breathing force, and then the destruction of that jungle historically, but then you overlay that with our contemporary concerns about the destruction of the rainforest and how problematic that is. And the way in the novel, and perhaps ultimately in real life, nature fights back. So there's a lot going on, and what was really interesting about it is that I think it's fair to say that for the first 50 pages, almost everybody really hated it. Everyone was just like, what is this? It's so hard to understand. You don't know what's going on. You're in this fever dream of a novel and this language sort of tumbling off the page. And yet, I just thought the thing that made it work was the sense of this very structured thinking behind it. You know, the mind of the author that you sense behind the text, sort of holding it all together. And I think what she's trying to do is incredibly complex. And I actually thought it wove together really well. And it was a completely baffling book that no one really understood. You know, we had a great time when we were discussing it, trying to puzzle it out in book club and trying to make sense of it. But it is such a funny one because I did admire it. But at the same time, I'm like, who would I recommend this to? But I feel like if you want something that is going to challenge you and wake you up, and where the language feels so alive and rich and strange and sort of dances off the page, and you maybe don't mind that it's not going to make that much sense, then this could be the book for you. It was longlisted for the Booker International Prize this year, so that's why we picked it up, and it won the National Book Award in America for translated fiction. So yeah, I think it was a really interesting book club read and quite a funny one. I haven't read anything like it before, and I was quite surprised after I'd finished and after we'd talked about it at the degree to which it stayed with me, which I did not expect. Not any particular sentences or bit of the plot, but the feelings it evoked in me. And what I was saying in book club is I think that the author, through the way that she's written the book, she sort of invites you to understand the story and this character on a sense level. So it's not being explained to you. She's constructed it in a way that it evokes certain feelings within you and you respond. And I thought that was so interesting and in its own way remarkable. But yeah, at the same time, it is quite a challenging read, so I just don't know. It's not that long. I was very interested by it, and now I finished it. I'm pleased that I read it. But would I wish it on anyone? I'm really not sure.
I feel like that could be a Phil and Laura book.
Yeah, I'm sold.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Listeners, if you give it a go, let me know. I'd love to know how you got on. We once did a Booker Prize edition of the pod where we did a little round of a game called Snog, Marry, Avoid, with which I'm sure listeners will be familiar. The idea was we went through some books and we gave our quick take reactions on whether we would snog them, marry them, or avoid them.
Snog being to kiss.
Yeah, right. So summer reading edition, we're going to do, I've got 10 books here that have been culled from the summer reading lists that are currently doing the round. I love this time of year actually when the summer reading lists come out. It's so rich and generative. I often keep them and then mine them, in the dark days of winter when I'm wondering what to read. But there are a few standouts, things that keep coming up again and again. So I thought it would be fun to whip through them and just see our hot takes. Is this a book that we would consider a beach read, immediate, enjoyable, fun? A suitcase book, the one that you definitely make room for, so that's your marry? Or would you leave it at the airport? So that's the book where, you've thought about it, but actually you flip through it and you think, no, this is not for me. That's your avoid.
Having read it, but probably not read it.
So you thought about it, but you're walking away.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might have bought it, but you thought better of it.
You needed to bring your weight down.
Exactly. So, yeah, in no particular order, just going through a few different lists. So the Booker Prize, they've got a nice list on their website of books that have been nominated for Booker Prizes that they thought would make great summer reads. So I've pulled out a few of those. Number 1 is Hot Milk by Deborah Levy. A mother and daughter are staying in a small Spanish fishing village, the mother there for treatment for a mysterious illness drawn there by an alternative medicine guru. Her daughter, meanwhile, is suspicious of both the treatment and her mother's illness, believing it might well be psychological rather than physical. Playing out of the weeks they are stuck there together, Deborah Levy explores the strange and monstrous nature of motherhood, testing the bonds of parent and child to breaking point. Okay, this is sort of an old favourite.
I actually just read this a couple months ago.
Did you?
First time. I'd say beach read, actually. It's very visceral. It's very well written. I did not get a lot of pleasure out of it. So I would almost start it at the beach and put it down.
Because it's set in a beach resort, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not actually a very convivial beach resort.
No. And like a lot of the interpersonal vibes, or not, convivial is not the word. So yeah.
Fraught, and slightly uncanny.
The sense of heat, right? The kind of sense of...
Yeah, but you want a sense of heat while you're at the beach? I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. I actually would pick it as a summer book. I have recommended it to people as a beach read.
Yeah, me too. What is it? Is it my suitcase pack?
Yeah, it'd be your suitcase book, the one you definitely make room for.
Yeah, definitely. There'd be other things in the mix, but it'd be my literary beach read.
Okay, also from the Booker Prize summer reading list, this one I pulled out mainly because I've always meant to read it and not got around to it yet. It's called The Eighth Life by Nino Haratishvili, translated by Charlotte Collins and Ruth Martin. At the start of the 20th century, a Russian family prospers. It owes its success to a delicious chocolate recipe passed down the generations with great solemnity and caution. A caution that is justified. This is a recipe for ecstasy that carries a very bitter aftertaste. Stasia learns it from her Georgian father and takes it north, following her new husband. But Stasia's will only be the first of a symphony of romances from that swirl, from sweet to sour, in this epic tale of the Red Century. Tumbling down the years, great characters and greater relationships come and go in Nino Haratishvili's 2020 International Booker Prize nominated novel. So yeah, I had that down as I should read that one, it sounds great. And I have heard good things from people I do know who have read it. How about you guys?
No, I think I'd leave it.
Laura is not looking sold.
No, I don't know. Chocolate recipe, ecstasy. It makes me think of that terrible American novel about the chocolatier in the south of France. I bring my prejudices, clearly.
Oh, chocolat. I like chocolat.
Yeah.
That's a novel? I thought it was just a movie.
I don't know. I think it was a novel.
Yeah, Joanne Harris, bestseller, much beloved.
Who knows? Regardless. Chocolatier, whimsical, secret recipe. No, not into it.
No? Phil?
So I would put this in my suitcase because I am fundamentally bad at beach reads. And I don't think your description said, but this is a doorstop. It is enormous.
Okay.
And so what I always do is I'm carrying way too much weight in my suitcase because I put in multiple doorstops for my beach holiday. And then I pick it up and then go think about how to make a cocktail. So it would go in my suitcase and probably come back in my suitcase equally unread.
I mean, that would probably happen to me too. I always have the best of intentions. Okay, this is the last of the, almost like, they've got a certain cachet because these are Booker-nominated books. And this is A Month in the Country by J.L. Carr. This is a classic. In the summer of 1920, two men meet in the quiet English countryside. One is a war survivor living in a church, intent on uncovering and restoring a historical wall painting. The other, too, is a war survivor, camping in the next field in search of a lost grave. Out of their physical meeting comes a deeper communion with the landscape, with history, and with a renewed belief in the future. In J.L. Carr's tale of survival and healing, a damaged veteran rediscovers the primeval rhythms of life, so cruelly disoriented by the Great War. I love this book. This is one of my favourites. And it's set in summer, and it does have this still, kind of drowsy quality of the sleepy English countryside.
We've all read this book,
Yeah,
yes? Yeah, I also love this book.
Yeah. Definitely pack it.
Yeah. Not least because, like Phil, I do like a doorstopper book on holiday, but I want it to be super plot driven.
Yeah.
And then I want to have slim literary novellas. I have one in front of me right now. We'll get to it. Just to like a palate cleanser. you know, to like take me back out of the plot heavy world and like elevate me. And that book's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like a single sitting read, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can really sink into it. It just leaves you with so much. That's what I love about it. Okay, onto the new releases that have not yet perhaps found their resting point in the culture. They are still in a bit of a publicity whirl. So the New York Times have done a list of best beach reads put together by critic Elizabeth Egan. They've categorised those under different headings, which is typically brilliant of them. So if you're someone who's in the market for heartfelt family dramas, she recommends Whistler, the new novel from Anne Patchett. The novel begins, she writes, with a chance encounter between Daphne Fuller, an English teacher, and her former stepfather, Eddie Triplett, whom she hasn't seen for years and remembers fondly. Their meeting sets in motion a series of events that might be hard to swallow if you have a difficult time wrapping your mind around the fact that Daphne had completely lost track of Eddie. If she loved him so much, why didn't she Google him? But once you dispense with such details, it's a pleasure, as always, to sink into Patchett's world of sisters, mothers, and old hurts. As in Tom Lake, her previous book, she includes a story within her story, and as with The Dutch House, the strong connection between siblings is what sticks with me. So, Whistler, what are your feelings about this one, which has had a lot of high-level publicity and exposure? And famously has a horse on the cover, but apparently there's no horse in the book. So if you're in the category of people who want to read books about horses on holiday, this one actually is not for you. Phil?
I've read it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was fast.
It's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd put it in the suitcase. It's a good beach read.
So I heard if you'd like Tom Lake, you'll like this, but as I hadn't read Tom Lake, that information wasn't very useful to me.
Yeah, I like Tom Lake, but I remember almost nothing about it.
I didn't finish Tom Lake.
Yeah. This is better than that, I would
Okay.
say. It's more memorable.
It would be interesting to read because I'm kind of on the fence with Anne Patchett.
Yeah.
She's a very accomplished writer, and often her books carry me through. I loved State of Wonder. Didn't finish Tom Lake, but really enjoyed The Dutch House when my daughter was a very young baby. But I don't know, there's something a bit safe about her novels. I feel like the characters are, I don't know, a little bit, it's not that they're flat, but just a bit American.
They're all just like these upper middle class Americans.
Yeah.
It's
There's
fine.
nothing. There's no real
Yeah.
like surprises. They all feel like they could be in a Nora Ephron movie. So maybe I will try it and see what I think.
A slightly less funny Nora Ephron movie.
Yeah,
I'd say.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But just well-rounded,
Yeah,
upper
yeah.
middle class white people on
That's
the
it.
Eastern Seaboard.
Yep.
Okay, so that's sounding a bit like put it in the suitcase, but with low expectations. Okay, the next one on the New York Times' list is actually a very good counterpart to the Anne Patchett, The Things We Never Say by Elizabeth Strout. Egan writes, I'm so loyal to Strout's OG characters, Olive Kitteridge and Lucy Barton, that I was reluctant to meet Artie Dan, but Strout's latest addition to her New England universe shares a certain indelibility with his predecessors, if not their main chops. Artie, a history teacher at a high school outside of Boston, is floundering as a husband and as a father, struggling to make sense of his place in the world. I won't call it a midlife crisis, that would be too obvious for Strout. But when Artie uncovers a family secret, his ambivalence begins to make sense. Bonus points for an opening line that sets the tone of the season. It was the middle of June, and the sun all day had kept right on shining with sweet mightiness.
Wah, wah.
Ooh, Laura, Phil loves
That
Elizabeth
first line,
Strout.
I'm like, no, God.
I think I'm hearing a lot of good things about this one. Phil, you haven't got to it yet?
No, I have read it. I do like her. I think she's a very similar vibe to Anne Patchett. All the things we were just saying about Anne Patchett is also true of Elizabeth Strout. I think she's just a bit sharper. With that said, there are some times where I just roll my eyes, including in this book, but it is very sweet. I mean, what I like about her, and I think it's true of Anne Patchett as well, is how seriously she dives into the lives and experiences and perceptions of older people and people approaching death and grappling with mortality in very moving ways, and a lot of authors don't. And Elizabeth Strout, I think, is very good at that. I like this a lot.
Is it depressing?
No.
Oh, good.
I was browsing Kate's bookshelves and I spotted The Rest of Our Lives by Ben Markovitz, which we read for the Booker Prize. And I was like, oh, that book.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did that? We said it at the time, but how did that get on the Booker shortlist? And even just like hearing you guys talk about these two authors, I'm like, it's the same thing. There must be this like vein of American nostalgia for stories about this demographic, which are not like representative of old America, which is a vast nation with varying levels of classes and backgrounds. I don't know.
But I think
find
it
it a
is
bit-
probably representative of the people reading literary fiction.
And who doesn't love to read about
NPR.
themselves, I guess.
Yeah. And exactly.
Yeah, and also the people who are white, middle-aged, affluent, privileged. I mean, do they not also have rich inner lives?
Do they too not bleed?
I think they're well represented. I think it's okay. And also, like, these authors are doing fine. It's just not what I want to read.
Okay, all right. So we're going to move on to the Times now. Now, the Times this year have done a pretty amazing list of 90 books.
This is a London Times.
Yeah, but I think they've very much taken a leaf out of the New York Times' book in terms of the way that they're presenting this list, which is no bad thing. So there are various different ways that you can filter this list that I really liked. Hardback, paperback, fiction, memoir, and brilliantly, it all then just flows into place. And also, they've done a very nice checklist, so you can check off the ones you want to read, and then at the end, you can generate this nice, handy sort of shopping list kind of thing. I think it was all really nicely done. I love it. It is paywalled, but you know what? I actually think you could just subscribe for 1 month and it's worth having. Anyway, I do have a subscription. A few of theirs that I pulled out. So a big one here in the UK is Land by Maggie O'Farrell. The Times say, what a year it's been for Maggie O'Farrell. First, the film adaptation of her 2020 novel Hamnet won an Oscar and pushed her book back up the bestseller charts. And now comes Land, her latest work, set in post-famine Ireland and sure to enchant O'Farrell fans everywhere. With echoes of Brian Friel's 1980 play Translations, Land follows Thomas, an Irish mapmaker, updating the records held by the Ordnance Survey. But he comes upon a strange, unrecorded place and has an experience that will change the way he views himself and his country. I have got a lot of time for Maggie O'Farrell. How about you guys?
I'm with two super fans here. And I feel like my own ambivalence towards Maggie O'Farrell is essentially a reaction to your
our
guys'
super fandom.
Yeah, super fandom.
I mean, we're not alone, right?
No.
No. To which I will say, maybe I will pack Land and give it a try. And then at least I'm being fair to my... If I don't like her, I don't like her. But I need to do further research. I can't just lean on my prejudices.
Can I also say, for folks reading right now in the heat waves in Europe or the US, one of her best novels is Notes on a Heat Wave, which is about the, 76, 74 big heat wave in the UK. It is great. It's a really good read. And if you are just like, what do I read in this sweltering heat? It's a good one.
Have you guys not read Land yet?
I have not read Land.
Okay, all right.
But it's one...
You packing it?
Yeah, I am certainly packing it. It's absolutely... But I'm sort of... I don't want to spoil it because I know I'm going to... Basically, I know I love everything she writes. So.
Me too. Next up is John of John by Douglas Stuart, in which Douglas Stuart swaps Glasgow for the Outer Hebrides in this rich, emotionally expansive novel about family, faith, and forbidden love. When 22-year-old Cal returns to Harris, old secrets begin surfacing around his stern father, John, a sheep farmer and church deacon. Yet plot is only part of the appeal. Stuart's prose is alive with colour, texture, and island life, while his islanders are drawn with warmth and compassion. Funny, sensual, and deeply humane, it becomes a moving group portrait of loneliness and love. Suitcase? Beach read?
I have also read this one. Sorry.
And what's the verdict?
It's great. I walked away thinking, is that really what... Because there's a bunch of gays in it on this Outer Hebrides island, Harris. I was like, is that at all true? And I actually today at this barbecue talked to this gay Scottish linguist who had been out in the islands like 10 years before this. And he was like, they're really gay. So like it felt like entirely true, actually. And I mean, Douglas Stuart is an amazing writer. It's a good read. He's so cinematic. So you really do get the sense of being on the Scottish island with all that entails, including these like crazy pre-Presbyterians and crazy religious folk. Yeah, it's good. I would pack it.
Yeah. I was pleased because I've been hearing good things about this, and whereas Young Mungo, I think, hadn't, from what I understand, didn't quite hit the mark. I know Shuggy Bane divides people, but I really loved Shuggy Bane.
Nobody hates it, right? It's
it
painful
just makes
to
us
read.
sad. Yeah.
I mean, Shuggy is its own thing with this unrelenting misery and that narrative, which was what happened to him. And this is not that. It is much more fictional, but it's a good read.
Yeah, I think I would pack it. Because I do feel a bit unfair on Douglas Stewart. Like, Shuggie Bain is a great book, but I couldn't finish it because it made me too sad. And spending time in any Scottish Isles will make me very happy.
Yeah.
So, great.
And you do go out on the fishing boats.
Great.
And you get the vibes.
Very into it. Yeah.
He knows what people want. Okay, new paperback fiction. I Want You to Be Happy by Jem Calder. The Times say, if you like Sally Rooney's particular blend of social analysis and heart-wrenching love story beset by miscommunication, you'll probably enjoy Jem Calder's debut novel. Set in a London made hostile by extortionate prices and unstable careers, it follows two young people, Chuck, 35, a lead copywriter at a creative agency who has recently broken up with his long-term girlfriend, and Joey, 23, who works in a coffee shop. The pair begin a halting, uncertain relationship while also trying to become writers. The book is at times an excruciating read, but Calder has genuine talent. His depiction of the tightening grip of alcoholism is particularly poignant. So this has been on my radar. I've seen it rounded about quite a bit, and generally it seems to have been quite well received. I'm intrigued, although that said, I was slightly wary of this kind of book. How about you guys?
I must say, the tightening grip of alcoholism doesn't draw me to a summer read. Like, I might set that aside for
what about
the winter.
the sort of social contemporary observation, if that's done well?
I smiled because I worked at a copywriting agency for 5 years in my late 20s and early 30s. And I'm still friendly with some of the writers then. I was like, is this a pseudonym? Do we know this author? No, there is a photo of Jem Calder, who seems to be a real person and maybe was never a copywriter in London. Who knows? But I don't know. I think I might be too old for it. I'm loving reading stories about people in their 20s when I was in my 20s right now with perfection, and reading millennials now writing and interpreting what we lived through. I find that really interesting. You know, understandably, it's a bit more of a mirror, but reading about like early 20-somethings written by a 20-something, I'm like, well, that's interesting, but I don't know if I'm going to take you to the beach.
The Director by Daniel Kehlmann. Kehlmann's darkly funny novel, which was shortlisted for the International Booker Prize, follows the Weimar film giant G.W. Pabst, who rejects an uncongenial Hollywood only to become trapped in his native Austria. Desperate to direct, he works with Joseph Goebbels under the delusion that he can serve art rather than propaganda. Kehlmann exposes how quickly corruption becomes normalised, tracing Pabst's descent. Try getting your tongue around that. Tracing Pabst's descent into total complicity. This is a subtle, chillingly relevant portrait of a brilliant man lost in a moral maze. Thoughts?
We both read it because we read it for book club a few months ago.
You and Phil?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I've read it too.
I am really disappointed that it didn't win the International Booker Prize.
Agreed.
It should be a bestseller. It should have huge crossover appeal, into the English language, and it just hasn't really stuck. Have you read Taiwan Travelogue, which did win?
Yeah.
It seems nice, but it doesn't seem like it's going to convert people to reading it, right? And it is nice when you get a winner that actually would just really, have legs and keep going, because this is a special, special novel. I listened to it, really enjoyed it, and I think it'll be on my best books of the year wrap up when we get there.
I think it actually was the top of my best books of the year last year. It was my
you got the
favorite
first.
one. Yeah. And then I reread it for our book group, and it was almost even better the second time. It is I just think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of that. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and I was gutted when it didn't win.
Is it too good for the beach? It might be.
It's a good question.
Yeah, you might need to take it seriously. Save it for September.
We should reassure people, you might not think that a novel set in Nazi Germany featuring this film director who you may not know anything about, because I certainly didn't, wouldn't be a great sun lounger page turner, but it really is.
It really is.
It's really testament to its brilliance that it weaves in all these really interesting, thoughtful ideas about complicity and compromise and art and life and what you might do as a human being if this regime comes in and you find yourself stuck in the middle of it, and the collateral damage from that, the fallout in terms of the effect it has on his family and indeed his own sort of emotional well-being that he just doesn't see because he's so driven by this all-consuming desire to make art. It's so interesting and it's so nuanced, and yet it is also a rollicking page-turner.
So rollicking. Also, the sort of the historical drop-ins of the true,
Yes.
I think it's all very well researched, but you get this amazing view of 1920s Weimar film industry, of 1930s Hollywood, of Greta Garbo, of Louise Brooks, who turns into a big character. But it's just so well done. Oh, of P.G. Wodehouse. There's a whole chapter of P.G. Wodehouse, which is absolutely damning, but is entertaining. It's just so great. I could not praise this enough.
Yeah, and that I thought was also a real test. You know, when Wodehouse cropped up, I thought, ooh, this could go awry.
Yeah.
And it so didn't.
Yeah.
It was just great. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. He's very well known in his native Germany. And it's just nice, I think, that through this, we're all finding out about him. One for the suitcase for sure. And then finally, over on LitHub, as she does every year, the completely heroic Emily Temple read through 25 summer reading lists, which recommended a total of 419 individual books. Of all of them, 60 books were mentioned 3 or more times. So Emily aggregates these lists and she's organised them into a list of descending order of popularity, which you can go and I'll put the link in the show notes. You can go and have a look at. It's always a great read. But the one I snagged out from this list of lists is Villa Coco by Andrew Sean Greer. It made 6 of the summer reading lists that Emily Temple looked at. Here's the synopsis. An aspiring archivist determined to begin a serious life after an undistinguished undergraduate career takes up residence in the Italian countryside. Here he becomes the all-purpose assistant to the Baronessa, known to her friends as Coco, a defiantly youthful and naturally flamboyant woman of 92. Amid a chaotic and colourful milieu of gin-swilling princesses, incomprehensible handymen, roaming boar hunters, nuns, and other local wildlife, our young man does his best to catalogue the villa's extensive collection of art and antiques, although he notices that things seem to go missing from right under his nose. Despite himself, he tumbles into an affair with a married man, complicating his future plans considerably. And when the Baronessa loses someone close to her, he becomes an unwitting accomplice in the acceleration of Coco's great and final plan, to locate the love of her life and be reunited before it's too late. Told with the signature wit, charm and humanity that made Les an international phenomenon, Villa Coco is a dazzling, sun-soaked ode to life itself, a meditation on how seriously we ought to take ourselves, and a bawdy Mediterranean ballad about becoming who we've always wanted to be. So, what will this one be? Beach read, suitcase book, or are you leaving it at the airport?
So, before Kate explained to us our 3 categories, Phil and I were going rogue and brainstorming, and I said, oh, there should be a category for book you find on the hotel bookshelf.
Yes.
and you read. That would be this book.
Yes.
Like, I'm not buying this book. I'm not even downloading it on my Kindle. But if I stumble across it on holiday, I'll be like, yeah, all right. You know, I might hate it, but that's fine. It'll be a mood.
I think he's in that difficult category, Andrew Sean Greer. Maybe a bit like someone like Maria Semple, of someone who everyone likes so much. He seems really charming, really funny and charismatic, and he's clearly just much loved. And also, you know, his first book was a hit, right? We all really enjoyed it. But I really thought his follow-up to Les was a real disappointment, and I have worries about Villa Coco.
I didn't even love Les that much.
I didn't even love Les that much.
It was fine. It was frothy and fun.
I read it on holiday.
But yeah, but I would 100%, as you said, Laura, if this was in the hotel, left behind, I would pick it up and have fun, for sure.
It's probably like a 48-hour read, if that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to take up much of your time or your mental headspace. I mean, sometimes that is what you want. When we come back, the books we're packing for our own holidays this summer. But first, do you want to get more from your reading? Come and join the Book Club Review on Patreon, where you'll have access to an archive of over 50 extra episodes, all crafted just for subscribers and featuring many of the voices you'll be familiar with from the main show, plus lots of new bookish friends I've met along the way. You'll meet fellow subscribers in our chat threads, which are always busy with tips and recommendations. And if you want to talk books with me in person, you can join our monthly book club. This month we're reading Transcription by Ben Lerner, a surprise omission from the Booker longlists this year. And in September, it's Reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi, her memoir that is a moving testament to the transformative power of books in life's darkest moments. We'll also be voting on what to read in October, November and December, so come and have your say. We meet over Zoom on the last Sunday of every month at 9 p.m. UK time, with a catch-up episode posted for anyone who can't make the live session. We're also just finishing up our read-along of The Power Broker, a book that has a cult-like following and which has proved to be one of the great reading experiences of my life. There will definitely be a special episode on it soon, and if you have an unread copy on your shelves, as I did, I urge you to open it, read the introduction, and then tell me you don't want to immediately read the rest. It's that good. Joining the Patreon is also an amazing way to support me in making the pod, and it really does make a huge difference. Thanks so much to all the current subscribers, and a particular welcome to new members Lucy Fisher and Emma Tunnard. I'm so looking forward to talking books with you. Head to patreon.com/The Book Club Review for all the details. Okay, back to our beach loungers, but what are the books Phil, Laura and I are actually planning on taking on holiday? You're about to find out. Okay, having packed our suitcases with pickings from the best summer reading lists, we've probably just got room to squeeze in a couple more. So now it's time for our recommendations for books we've loved and want to pass on to you. So Phil, what falls into that category for you?
I read this a couple of months ago and absolutely loved it. It is The Feast by Margaret Kennedy. She's another one of those mid-century British writers who was then forgotten. This one, I think, was written in 1947. It starts at the local village priest of this parish in Cornwall. And there was this old shaggy hotel in between these cliffs right on the beach in Cornwall. And one day, the cliff just fell onto the hotel, killing the people in it. But a lot of the people were not in it. And then it jumps back to the beginning, or like a week earlier, or 2 weeks earlier, to this cross-section of people populating this hotel in Cornwall. And
I feel like I've seen the cover of this now. Yeah.
So it's been reissued by the New York Review of Books Classics, the amazing imprint. They reissued this a while back, and I think they've been reissuing more Margaret Kennedy. But it is just an absolute delight. That sounds like a serious premise, but it's not super serious, this book. They are all basically people on vacation at the beach in Cornwall. There's this lady novelist who possibly is based after Margaret Kennedy, who has this young age. She's banging on the side. There's various families. There's like a sociopathic mother. There's a bunch of kids. It's also right after the war, so they are all talking about some of them left the country to sit out the war. Some of them powered through the Blitz. A lot of them, their like fortunes went up or down because of the war and the immediate post-war period. And then it's also this amazing portrait of what that immediate post-war period was like, because there's still rationing, there's still all this stuff. I thought it was just an absolute delight. I have now gone out and tried to get my hands on any Margaret Kennedy out there because she's really good. And I think it should be an amazing beach read.
Nice. Sounds good. I worry I have talked about this book in the past, but never mind. The reason why it's front of mind as my summer holiday reading, because I recommended it yesterday to one of Kate's friends at the park. And it is Jin Lee's Free Food for Millionaires. Now, people know Jin Lee is the author of Pachinko. I should say I have Pachinko tabbed for future summer reading.
Because you've still not read it.
Because I still haven't read it. And I'm going to find it on a bookshelf or in a used bookstore sometime soon. I found Free Food for Millionaires in a used bookstore when it had been reissued after the success of Pachinko. And it was front of mind because Kate had bought me a copy of The Bookseller and I was flicking through it yesterday. And Jin Lee has a new book out, also sounds great, American Hagwon. But to go back, her first book took her 10 years to write. Her next book took her 10 years to write. And this book took her 10 years to write. Wow. And they are long novels, but sort of more than that. They're like almost old-fashioned novels. I mean, I haven't read the other two, but she's inspired by Vanity Fair and Dickens, and she wants to have this complex cast of characters going through different sets of circumstances and weaving together their lives over time. Free Food for Millionaires is the story of a young woman who's just graduated from Princeton. She's the daughter of Korean immigrants who run a dry cleaner in New York City. And they expect her to kind of get on and work in banking. And she's thinking about it, but essentially she's quite struck by high society and that she's really trying to crack it. Hence the title Free Food for Millionaires, which is that, the wealthy expect everything for free, even as people who are striving to make their lives better don't get any handouts. A lot happens. It's kind of melodramatic in parts, but it's such a good book to sink into, probably over the course of 5 days, because it's dense. Not perfect by any means, but just rollicking, really interesting. And I hadn't read anything quite like it.
Yeah, it's on my TBR, as is Pachinko, which I've still not read.
Oh my God.
But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's really one of these books where it's just ridiculous that I haven't read it when everybody seems to say it's so great.
It also feels like every book club has read Pachinko. It seems like the book club book.
So my recommendation is, actually, I've cheated like I always do, sorry.
Are there 2 or 3?
One rule for Kate, another
Free
for everyone
food
else.
for millionaires.
No. It's just because it's a memoir, it's not a novel. And that is Famesick by Lena Dunham. So I think quite polarizing, this one, and many people, I think if you're interested, you may well have read it already. It's been sort of cresting the wave of publicity when it came out. I think one of the things that maybe affects your reaction to it is how much you know about Lena Dunham, like how Lena Dunham aware you are. Listeners of the pod will know that I am sufficiently detached from the world of contemporary popular culture that I didn't really know that much about Lena Dunham. I've watched a bit of Girls back in the day. I think I watched the first season. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. But hadn't really kept up with her or followed her in any way. Had no sense of the subsequent series or what else she'd gone on to do with her life. And this memoir came out and I was curious. There was a very clickbaity teaser going around about big ructions with co-star Adam Driver. And, I'm human. I was curious. I was like, oh, what happened? So I downloaded it on Kobo and I was just so surprised and captivated and completely absorbed by this really interesting, very thoughtful memoir of her experiences as a very young woman when she first went into the film and TV industry. And to have that much pressure on her, that much responsibility. First of all, this film that she made, which is the thing that really put her on the map and got her a lot of attention. And then from that, when the series Girls was commissioned and she was the writer, she was also starring in it and to some extent show running. It was a lot. And I think what's interesting is from the way she tells the story, you get a lot of background detail about her family and her upbringing. And there's a really great section about, what it was like. She grew up in New York, in this kind of creative, artistic milieu that she was in the middle of. And you see how she was in a position to be connected with all these people, like Judd Apatow, who saw her talent and enabled Girls to get to the point where it was being made. And it then became this huge hit. And not only a huge hit, but something that was really seen as a sort of, every so often things come along that really define moments in the culture and really articulate something that everyone recognizes. I feel like Phoebe Waller-Bridge did a similar thing with Fleabag. And so I think because you've sort of got to know her, you see where all that came from. And it's just really breathtaking and sort of dazzling to understand how she did what she did and how hard she worked to get there. And then it's just a really, really, really fascinating story on the interpersonal dynamics between herself and the rest of the cast, of the crew, particularly this one very significant central relationship with the co-producer of the show, who is an older woman, Jenny, who is still very successful within the TV industry world, but they later on have this quite spectacular falling out. It's worn off now, but I did become quite Lena Dunham obsessed after I'd read this and spent quite a bit of time on her Instagram feed. And she lives in London now, North London. I could have been passing her on the street. Anyway, this is me. But if you're looking for a really great page turner with actually, that little frisson you get from reading non-fiction where this is real people, this is real world stuff, put this in your suitcase. If it sounds like your sort of thing, then I think you are going to absolutely love it.
Well, I am on holiday. So I am already halfway into my first book of the summer, which is Swimming Home by Deborah Levy. I gave Kate the American edition of Gertrude Stein and Me? Is that what it's called?
My Year in Paris with Gertrude Stein.
It's gorgeous. It looks so beautiful.
So when I picked that up for Kate in Vancouver, I also picked up a reprint of an early Deborah Levy novel, Swimming Home, which has some similarities in tone, I'd say, to Hot Milk. It's hot weather. People are behaving badly. No one seems all that likable. It starts off with this family arriving at a villa just outside of Nice in France. There looks like there's a body at the bottom of the swimming pool, and there is, but it's a living, breathing body, and it's a young woman who emerges. And the mother, the wife in this couple who are there, says, oh, well, why don't you just stay? Because there's been some confusion about the booking. And almost immediately, the husband, who's a poet, seems to embark on this affair, but it's very unclear whether the wife wanted this to happen and what's going on. It's very atmospheric. It's not super highbrow, but I'm enjoying it. And then on my Kindle, just looking straight ahead, I have Anne Leckie's latest book, which is Radiant Star. Anne Leckie is the Hugo, Nebula, and Arthur C. Clarke award-winning author. She wrote Ancillary Justice, which is a trilogy, as well as others. I've read all her books. They're all sci-fi. They're all space operas, but they're really well done. Like, you haven't read them yet, Phil?
I have not, no.
She's just one of those authors where you're hooked, and you don't know how you do it. We were talking about Patrick Rothfuss the other day.
Yeah.
There's just some authors where within 3 or 4 pages, and you couldn't say what it is about their writing or their storytelling or the details, but you're just there, and you're so present and up for it. So I'm very excited about that. And then I have a copy of the Levantine trilogy by Olivia Manning, but what I actually need to get is the Balkan trilogy by Olivia Manning, which I saw highly recommended in a couple of newsletters over the winter. I haven't picked that up yet, but I keep my eye out whenever I'm in a used bookstore right now. That would be my kind of like stonking summer read and try to get through those. Phil?
It's good. I actually just started the first of those. It's good.
Yeah? Okay.
My big summer vacation is going back to the U.S., a week in the city, a week up in the mountains. Before I go, I am going to be reading, because I just got on Libby after waiting for a while, because I love the Mitford sisters. Wait for Me, which is the one by Deborah Mitford. She's the one who becomes the Duchess and moves into
The Duchess of Devonshire, Chatsworth.
Yeah. Chatsworth. Yeah. So that looks very fun. For those who don't know, the Mitford sisters were this amazing family of 5 sisters. 2 of them were very fascist, and one of them went over and was in Adolf Hitler's circle. And then I think after the war began, tried to kill herself, and then was just... Does this sound right?
Diana and Unity were both, I think, very pro-fascism.
Right. And Diana was more like Oswald Mosley, like the British fascist, but they both like loved Hitler. And then their older sister was Nancy. But I think Nancy Mitford, who wrote The Pursuit of Love and she's an amazing author. I think she was like generation ahead of the other Mitford sisters. Anyway, I am going to be reading the Deborah Mitford one about becoming a duchess. And so they are quite the mix.
I have never read anything or any novel by a Mitford sister.
Wow.
It's strange.
That is strange.
It's weird.
The Pursuit of Love, right?
Nope, never read it.
Some of the like early... Well, you don't love P.G. Wodehouse like I do, but
Oh,
some
I
of the
do.
early
I
Nancy
love P.G.
Mitfords
Wodehouse.
are very funny,
Okay.
and they are very just sort of like interwar years, just these upper class fops.
I'm into
And she
it.
actually wrote one that was then pulled in her lifetime, I think called Wigs on the Green, something like that, which was making fun of Oswald Mosley and the fascists, like the British fascists. They loved marching and getting in khakis and blah, blah, blah. And she wrote this, and I think it severed relationships with her sisters who were out there loving Adolf. And I think she even pulled it from publication out of print because she was trying to repair. I might be getting the history wrong, but like that is a good read.
Okay. Well, I'm going to scour Kate's bookshelves before I leave on the next jaunt of my trip and see what I can pull. I feel like you must have it.
Well, what I do have that I think you would love, Phil, is this brilliant graphic... It's not a novel, it's a graphic biography, I guess, memoir. But it's by Mimi Pond, and it's called Do Admit. Wait, let me look it up. A stunning graphic biography of the 6 sisters. There were 6 of them. I thought there were only 4. Who blazed their way through the 20th century, beguiling their peers, the press, and then the rest of the world. As a young girl living in sun-bleached 1960s suburban California, Mimi Pond fell in love with the Mitford sisters, Nancy, Pamela, Diana, Unity, Jessica, and Deborah, who brought society glitz, pageantry, scandal, and real rainy weather to her own prosaic life. High society debutantes known for rubbing shoulders with some of history's most infamous fascists and communists, the sisters were also, in turn, gifted writers. So it's this brilliant group biography of the sisters and their wildly fabulous, eccentric, aristocratic lives and the bonds between them. But it's also, and this is what I've been enjoying, is a portrait of Mimi Pond herself, growing up in California with no obvious connections between her life and theirs. But she was just fascinated by them. And so you get a bit of her story and the inspiration that she took from them. It's really, really fun. It's quite a detailed book. I keep meaning to carve out time to read it properly. And you know what? This has just made me think I am going to be adding that to my little stack of books that I'm going to be taking away with me this summer. So I can't lend it to you just yet, Phil.
Yeah, I've heard an interview with her, and it is on my radar to read that. The other one, while I'm on vacation, I'm going to be reading The Keeper, the newest Tana French, which is the third of this trilogy with Cal Hooper, this like retired Irish-American cop who moves to this random rural village in Ireland. Have you read any of them, Laura?
I've read one Tana French. My dad weirdly bought it for me right when Rose was brand new baby.
Oh, wow.
And I remember reading it kind of with her lying on the carpet next to me.
Yeah.
Like, what's happening? Okay, back to the book. I don't read a lot of crime, and it kind of haunts me. But
Yeah.
she's a fantastic writer.
She's an
She just
amazing
happens
writer,
to
yeah.
write crime.
Yeah. And these are, there's barely, there is generally some crime, but they're not mysteries per se. She just creates these amazing characters, and they're very easy to read. There's like a propulsive plot, but there's also just a lot of other stuff going on. I think she said this is the final of this trilogy about these characters, but that will be my beach reading.
As for me, I found a bit of a nice groove with my reading recently that actually unites two things that are a part of me that generally I tend to keep quite separate. The words writing side of me, almost like the editorial side, and then the artistic creative side of me, which tends to get a bit neglected. And then it suddenly dawned on me, I think, during the course of this year, that there are books where you have writers who also include their own artwork, whether that's notebooks and journals. I got very swept away by Orhan Pamuk's diaries that are in the form of his beautifully illustrated journals, things like that. But I just realised, oh, this is such a great theme, and I really get a kick out of it. I love these kinds of books so much, and I find them incredibly inspiring. So I've been following that thread, and it's led me to some very happy discoveries. There's a new book coming out by an author whose previous books I have really, really loved, and that's Sarah Boehm. She's an Irish author. It's called Opening Night. So she's someone, again, whose sort of craft practice is as important as her writing one. And this is a book about her experience with the artwork of an artist called Molly Doughtit, who happens to be, and I cannot tell you how thrilled I was when I made this connection, but she just happens to be someone who I know listens to the pod and has been listening for many years, and we've messaged on Instagram. So Molly, if you're listening, hello. I know I am very much looking forward to reading this book. So Molly is originally from North Dakota and for some years now has lived and worked in Ireland in this remote cabin on a lonely bit of Irish coastline. And it so happened that Sarah Baum met her. These two connected and they discovered that they had a lot in common. And so they started to meet every month and have lunch together. And so I think this book is about that creative relationship and how they then influenced one another. And in Daunt Books the other day, I picked up a book by Olivia Lang and Chantal Joff, the painter, which is called Painting, Writing, Texting. And it's more like a coffee table art book. It beautifully reproduces Joff's paintings. But then in between, it's got these essays by Olivia Lang. And that is similarly about this very fruitful relationship between them where for years Lang has been writing about Joff's artworks, sort of introducing them for exhibitions and things like that. And so again, this book is just this really beautiful synthesis of these two things. And what I really love about it is that you could just look at the paintings or you could just read the texts, and each of those would be quite a rich experience, but together there's a magic alchemy that happens, where they sort of enhance each other. And that's really, really, really beautifully exemplified in this book. And then the final one is something I just picked up in Daunt Books the other day. It's Called by the Hills, which is by a novelist, Anandura Roy. And it's a memoir. It's her story of renovating this house in the remote Himalayas with her husband. And it's got that slight hook of they both worked in publishing and then they went to live quite remotely and wanted to make a go of it there.
Phil, did she have you at remote Himalayas?
I mean, yes.
We literally picked up. We're like, it's quite late, but...
No, it's more a series of essays and reflections on living there, writing there, and her stories of people in the local community that she knows. And interspersed are her own beautiful watercolour paintings, which I really love, and which make me want to rush off and do some bad art of my own.
Kate is a very talented painter. She's always
know that.
Yes, she's always saying, "Oh, my bad art. I'll send you some of the watercolors she's done for me in like the back of a notebook." She's like, "Oh, here's just this lousy picture I've done." And I'm like, "This is great. I'm framing it right now."
No, they're really not. I think the bar is quite low here.
That's
It's a low bar for you to like.
Yes. I mean, certainly it's a low bar for talent. I don't have any, but
Hey, listen, we may not be talented artists, but you two are both extremely talented readers and talkers on the subject of books. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope that all our summer reading piles, and I include you listeners in this, live up to our expectations. That's nearly it for this episode. You'll find all the books mentioned in the show notes. Don't forget to check out the Patreon for all the details of how to join for ad-free listening, regular extra episodes, our monthly book club, and my reading diaries and monthly wrap-ups, which are available to members on the free tier. I'd love to see you there. But for now, whether you're heading to the coast, the countryside, or simply enjoying a quieter pace at home, I hope you found something here to add to your reading pile. Thanks for listening, and I wish you happy reading.
Some days you just want to amplify your everyday look. Like when you want the look of false lashes without the extra effort, reach for Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Volumizer Mascara. Or when you want all eyes on your smile, keep Empower Gloss Ultra Glossy Lip Serum in your bag. It's a burst of 24-hour hydration that smooths like a serum, shines like a gloss, and can be worn sheer or layered. You'll always look and feel your best with Thrive Cosmetics. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin, not against it. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.